Hello, all you happy people. It's been a while since we got to review a new animated film on here. I think the last one I talked about was Nimona, and that was way back at the beginning of the month. Boy, time really does fly faster than I thought. But now we got a new one to talk about that I happened to get the chance to watch early, so let's get right into talking about it. Leonardo, Raphael, Donatello, Michelangelo. Together, this group of heroes in a half shells are the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The pizza-loving, butt-kicking reptiles from the sewers of New York got their start in a comic book back in 1984 and soon exploded into a massive franchise. TV shows, video games, toys. It really took off as a phenomenon, and it managed to even leap onto the big screen in 1990 with that live-action film, and has stuck around to the present day. I may not have been a fan of this franchise growing up, but I can say that I really do enjoy it quite a bit for its silliness, and it's not hard to see why it's stuck around all these years. I could go into detail about every film in the TMNT franchise, but since I'm more of the animation guy, I figured I'd talk briefly about the two animated films that have come out. The first one we got was back in 2007, aptly titled TMNT. The film was produced by the now defunct animation studio Imagi, and followed the Turtles after they defeated their major arch-nemesis, the Shredder. All four have gone their separate ways, though soon they're forced to reunite to defeat a whole slew of baddies, including one villain who plans to bring Stone Warriors to life. As a whole, I thought this film was okay. I certainly didn't think the film was as bad as what some critics have said, but I can't say I was a huge fan either. The pieces were in the right place, as I did love how the characters were portrayed in this version, as well as some of the emotional weight, particularly the conflict between Leo and Raph. It had a great cast. I mean, Mako as Splinter is perfect casting, and I also liked the grungy animation, as it was a cool fit for the Turtles. However, the film was unfortunately brought down by its really poor pacing, awkward editing, and most importantly, some really bad cinematography. The camera work in this film is truly horrific, especially in the fight scenes. Sometimes the camera moved like a video game camera, and other times the shots were just poorly constructed in general. For example, there's a really cool fight scene that happens between Leo and Raph, but for whatever reason, they decide to put the camera behind a neon sign in some shots, blocking the action from the viewer. Why in the world would you do that? It's an animated film. You can literally put the camera anywhere in the shot. Why would you want to put it behind a neon sign? Like, imagine if in Kung Fu Panda, during the bridge fight scene between Tai Lung and the Furious Five, there was a giant bamboo tree blocking the shot. That's what it was like in TMNT. Overall, like I said, the film is okay, and I don't dislike it as much as others do. But I do think the film was really held back from its full potential that could have made it a fun animated action film. After that, the Turtles got two live-action films produced by Michael Bay that were both pretty terrible, before they finally got a brand new animated film on Netflix in 2022, with Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles the movie, the film adaptation based on the Nickelodeon show. And I really loved this film. I even named the film an honorable mention on my best animated films list last year, since it's truly a lot of fun. Much like TMNT, it follows the Turtles following the defeat of the Shredder, but this time they have to take on the alien race known as the Krang, and it is fantastic. The comedy is hilarious, the Krang are very intimidating and scary villains, there's a lot of great action, and the animation is simply dazzling. It's a huge blast of a film, and I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. It basically delivers everything that a good animated TMNT film should. And now we got another new animated Ninja Turtles film to talk about, so let's get to it. After the conclusion of the Rise cycle, Nickelodeon has given a new update on the Turtles called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. And this was easily one of my most anticipated animated films of the year ever since its announcement in 2020. There were a lot of reasons why I was hyped for it, which I'll get to more in my overall thoughts, but it mainly came down to who was working on the film. One was Seth Rogen, who wrote and produced the film alongside his partner Evan Goldberg, and the other was the film's director Jeff Rowe, who previously co-wrote and co-directed The Mitchells vs. the Machines, which happened to be my favorite animated film of 2021 and is still to date my favorite Sony Pictures animation film. With these three working together on a Ninja Turtles film, I was very excited to see what kind of craziness they could bring to Mutant Mayhem. And what they bring to the table here is truly exciting and so much fun. Much like the Rise movie, this film is seriously a blast, and I had so much fun watching it from start to finish. And you know what? I loved this film so much that I now think it might be my favorite Ninja Turtles movie, and considering how much I loved Rise, that is saying something. As I'm sure you all know, the film once again shows the Turtles' backstory. 4 baby turtles are dropped into the sewer of New York, covered in ooze. A rat named Splinter, voiced by Jackie Chan, finds them, and they soon mutate into having more human-like features, and Splinter soon raises the turtles as his sons and trains them in the art of ninjutsu, naming them Leo, Raph, Donnie, and Mikey, who are respectively played by Nicholas Cantu, Brady Noon, Micah Abbey, and Shamon Brown Jr. 15 years go by, and the turtles have soon become older and are desperate to see more of the human world, and hope to be accepted by humans and even get the chance to do more, like go to high school, though Splinter is reluctant due to a bad experience they had going outside the sewers. Eventually, the group run into a teenager their age named April O'Neil, played by Iowa Debris, an aspiring school journalist desperate to move past an embarrassing incident. They soon become friends and strike up a deal to work together to catch a group of mutant villains terrorizing New York in the hopes that all of them can be embraced by society and be accepted. They soon come across the mutant army, led by their leader Superfly, played by Ice Cube. And from there, silliness ensues. There's a lot of things that I loved about this new incarnation of the Turtles, but I'll just start off by saying the one thing that this film has compared to the other films that I really adored most, and that's the youthful teenage spirit. As much as I liked previous installments that I've seen, I've always felt that the Turtles never really acted or sounded like teenagers most of the time. They mostly felt like adults. That was a problem that Seth Rogen also had with the franchise, and that was something he aimed to fix in Mutant Mayhem, and it really helps make this film feel very fresh and exciting. There's a lot of teenage film influences this film pulls from, particularly the work of John Hughes. This film explicitly references Ferris Bueller's Day Off at one point, which is a plus in my book, since Ferris Bueller is one of my all-time favorite films. But what this reminded me more of was an 80s Amblin film. It had a lot of that same energy you would see in films from them at the time, particularly The Goonies. And also the plot itself is perfectly silly as it should be for a Ninja Turtles film. The film really leans in on this franchise silliness, and it helps make this film such a fun time, and it's benefited by the hilarious comedy that comes from the fantastic character interactions, which I'll get to more when I talk about the characters. I also like the film taking on themes of acceptance for being different, which I think really fits well for the Turtles. And again, having them played by teenagers really helps drive this point even further, since a lot of kids their age will relate to that. It all builds to a really fun and silly climax that has a lot of craziness and energy to it, and it helps make this film seriously a blast. There are a few problems I do have with the screenplay though, but it doesn't have to do with the comedy or overall direction of the film. It mainly comes down to some clunky moments. I think the exposition at the beginning could have been handled way better, and there was also a scene during the third act that came right out of nowhere and grinds the film to a halt. It should have been moved much earlier to help make the flow tighter. Other than that, this screenplay was mostly solid and works very well. The animation in the film is also the other big benefit of the film. Much like other animated films that have come out in the wake of Into the Spider-Verse, this is a film that leans heavily into combining 2D and 3D animation together, and this is one of the best looking I've seen come out of it. The film's animation takes inspiration primarily from notebook doodles, and it helps give the film this very scribbly and loose look that was pretty cool. This is a film that genuinely looks like it was drawn onto with scribbles and loose line work everywhere. Not to mention, the colors really pop, and the action scenes are very tightly filmed and controlled. There's one action montage that really makes great use of the editing and cinematography, and it was pretty fun. It also benefits from another killer score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, whom continue to make amazing music for films. Between this and Soul, I hope they really get to do more animated films in the future. Now let's get to talking about the characters, who are easily the shining spot of this film. I really love this new incarnation of the Turtles, and it wasn't just the fact that they acted and felt like teenagers, but also the bond they had together feeling brotherly and genuine. One thing that Rogen and Rowe did for this film that I think benefits it a lot is have the actors record their lines together. In most animated films, the actors usually record their lines alone, whereas here, the actors, primarily the 4 teens playing the teenagers, acted together, which allowed for more improvisation, and I think it really helped bring out the bond more in them and make them feel more like actual siblings. And also like that Splinter felt more like a father to the Turtles as well. Their family dynamic felt very strong. I also really love the new take this film did on April. In previous incarnations, April was always older than the Turtles, whereas this film made her the same age, which I think was a wise choice, as it would make sense for the Turtles to befriend and bond with someone who's closer to their age and feels in a similar place they are with trying to be accepted by their peers. And then there are the villains of the film, and they are also a lot of fun and very goofy. Their leader, Superfly, is truly great, as his villainous plan is one that makes sense, and he's also a character who's both very slick and cool, while also being a baddie you do not want to mess with. This was a role that was perfectly made for Ice Cube. And his henchmen are also a lot of fun and stand out. My favorite, if you're wondering, is Mondo Gecko, played by Paul Rudd. And I also really do like that the Turtles have to deal with another villain outside of the Shredder, since they've had to deal with him in almost every film. Even in the 2 animated films, where he's not the primary focus, he's still mentioned with the Turtles defeating him. Keeping him out of this film was the right move, since I think he's a bigger villain to work up to. It's essentially what Christopher Nolan did for the Dark Knight trilogy. Start off with some other good villains for Batman Begins, save the big guns for the sequel. And yes, Mutant Mayhem is getting a sequel. Not just because there's a mid-credit scene teasing it, but, well, Paramount announced it a few days ago. But I'm not complaining, because Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem is a blast. This is everything I wanted out of a fun animated Ninja Turtles film. It has a hilarious and entertaining story, amazing animation with terrific action, and a cast of memorable characters who bounce off each other perfectly. This is one of the most entertaining animated films of this year, and I highly recommend it. And I'm gonna give Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem a 9. This was a real blast and a fun summer action film. It's perfect for newcomers, and old fans will get a kick out of it as well, especially with the amount of Easter eggs. All I can say is, in a word, cowabunga.
It's like more like, it's just nicer.
It rolls off the tongue better, yeah.
Ooze. It's nice, right? It's ooze.